And unfortunately, fentanyl is so fucking powerful that it's like playing Russian roulette with 4 bullets in the chamber every time you take a dose.
Right. And when we're looking at people who have the severe trauma, and then you add the collective trauma that we've been through, both politically and with COVID, which got all put together for some reason. Somehow they successfully politicized.
Didn't they? It was amazing.
And then you have a drug like fentanyl. It's like the perfect storm.
Yeah.
Right. And then, of course, it's easy to say fentanyl is the problem, which, of course, it is a problem. But we also want to look at what's underneath that. Sometimes we say, well, people are bringing drugs into our country. But like if there wasn't a market, the drugs wouldn't be coming in. So it's multi-layered, right? Of course, fentanyl is very deadly. And, back when I was drinking and using, we didn't crack had just come out. And we were told if you could use it once and die instantly, that kind of thing. And I was honestly afraid to do it. But we're looking at these drugs that are really deadly now. And the drugs aren't the problem. And yet the drugs are actually causing these deaths. So that's, of course, a problem.
Right. First time. What was that?
It took 7
Are you
seconds.
still? Are you still on Bluetooth?
I am on Bluetooth.
Yeah. That's why I can hear you through the freaking microphone on your phone.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. That's really funny. Was the CIA calling in?
Is that you guys right there?
Yeah, I mean it's one of two things.
Yeah, whatever.
It's either me with or without a beard. It depends on how long I want to keep him.
Right.
Yeah, if he pisses me off and
then it's you and you with a beard.
Yeah. And I have a beard right now, so
Yeah.
Perfect.
I don't always.
And he's
have
got a
beard.
mock-up of me, a full-size mock-up of me for someone for right here. So it's like a stuffed dummy. Just sit here with not say anything though.
And maybe
He
it could
needs to
just
make eye
nod.
contact. Needs to make eye contact.
Yeah.
That's all he really needs.
Yeah.
And he's good.
Perfect.
This is literally how our podcast goes.
I'm looking forward to it.
I really like the way the bird, and that's a hummingbird,
That's a hummingbird.
is flying out of the open cage.
Yeah.
Released.
Someone told me hummingbirds should not be in cages.
Really?
And I said, that's the point.
Wow. That's cool. I never knew that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. We don't know much.
Are we live?
We are live.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's do this thing.
Once upon a time.
Yeah.
Where do you want me to begin?
Where do you want to begin?
Well, I actually like to go way back.
Let's go way back.
Because the reason that I'm here today and why I've created Conscious Recovery is based on my own story.
Mm-hmm.
And the story goes way back to the beginning when I remember being a very young child and filled with joy, happiness, awe, wonder. My mother often said I was the happiest toddler she's ever met, ever experienced. And that really was true for me. And around the age 7, I had a profound experience of my heart closing. And there were a lot of things that led up to that, but it was at that moment that I decided some really huge things about myself and the world, including the world is not safe, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy. A lot of things at that moment changed for me. And I look back and I realized that wall that was built around my heart actually was coming in. It felt like it was coming in from outside of me to protect me. But the deeper issue was it was also protecting me from the love and connection that I truly desired.
Or guarding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Look at Shane.
It's just a great start.
No, it is.
Yeah. He's got me. I'm
Yeah.
just waiting for the
Well,
word here.
I mean, and the reason I start with that is I think a lot of times when we look at addiction, we tend to think of addiction as the problem.
Yeah.
And for me, going way back to that very first experience of closing my heart, I look at that now as a strategy that helped me survive. And I look at addiction in the same way. And starting with the recognition that we come into this world as whole and perfect people, wide open. And if that doesn't work for people, we could say we come in as a blank canvas and then get programmed by the world.
Right. I agree.
Yeah, totally.
You're a good speaker too.
Yeah, very well spoken.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're saying, I really respect and I believe, because that's why when I was reading books when my wife was pregnant, I tried not to raise my voice.
Right.
It was always a conscious effort to just speak like this. Hi, how are you, honey? Even if I was really mad, you bitch. Yeah, no, I'm not happy right now at all with you. You really piss me off.
We're going to keep the energy very calm.
Very calm. Yeah.
We did that with my son and played like classical music and stuff.
Yeah.
He's an amazing kid.
Incredible.
4.2 grade point average.
Nice.
Yeah, good looking young
Junior
man.
in high school, about to be a senior.
Yeah.
Amazing.
On his way to Baylor.
Yeah.
Wow.
Got his shit together.
Yeah.
That was not my story.
No.
I had a very different story than that.
Right.
That could have been my story, I'm imagining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But all stories, if especially when we do healing, though, they become so beautiful.
Yeah.
The pain becomes, the pain that we go through, and the flowers that we become. That's the beauty in all of it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't change
power.
anything. Yeah,
Yeah,
because
same.
I mean, we hear shift happens.
Yeah.
And we know where that phrase came from, right?
Yeah.
But I say fertilizer happens.
Yeah.
Because the shit of our life, the things that are the most difficult, often become that fertilization or that new growth opportunity, or a way to really imagine ourselves in a very different way.
Yeah.
As a helper, most of the time.
Yeah. I mean, my story, just to bounce around a little, I got sober in 1986. So it's been a while. I'm not necessarily wanting to add up I was almost 21 plus 37. Yes, that's how old I'm going to be this year.
We're all in the same boat.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. But what happened in my story is I was around 18 months sober and I found myself suicidal. And the paradigm at the time sounded something like, don't worry about anything but not drinking. Your life is a miracle. Go help someone else.
Right.
And that had worked really well for me. I was so grateful. I actually lived near here around that time. But I met a woman who changed my life, and she took me on a journey of rediscovering my true nature. And that's become the foundation of my work. It's become the journey that I'm here to share with the world. And it came from my own experience of darkness, but, at age 7 in my addiction. And then maybe even more importantly, when I was about 18 months sober and was suicidal and found a way out of that.
Yeah. I mean, and so often though that happens. I'm a little like echoey in my hello.
Yeah, a little echoey.
A little echoey.
Yeah. Could be the glass.
Maybe. Anyway. So when you came in, were you in the program, the 12-step based program?
I was, yes.
Yeah. And at 18 months, had you worked the steps?
I had.
Yeah.
Yeah. I came in super willing. I was one of those people that was like, okay, this has been really fun. I'm 7 days sober. Now let's get to work.
Right.
So I was kind of like a high achiever kind of person. And I look back on that now and realize that a lot of that was a response to my unhealed trauma, that I wanted to do it perfectly. Yeah. So yeah, I had worked the steps at least 5 times by the time I was 18 months sober.
Right.
Oh, true. Honestly though, like what you just said, you want to do it perfectly. So in those 5 times, I'm feeling with what you're saying behind the scenes is that you were perfect, but not really honestly perfect.
Well, it's interesting you use that word, because the foundational principle of conscious recovery, which is my book and the system of care that I've created to assist people along with whatever other support they're using, the foundational principle is underneath all addictive behavior is an essential self that's whole and perfect.
Yeah.
And because I believed I was broken, I believed I was damaged, I believed I was anything but perfect, I was trying to look perfect on the outside to try to heal something that felt so fundamentally damaged and broken within.
So when did this book actually come about?
The book came out in 2017, and it was a culmination of my work in this field and then my own recovery. I was one of those people who said, I will never, ever, ever work in recovery, right? I was one of those. And I'm grateful that it wasn't until I was over 20 years sober that I started working in the field. But I started in 2008, and a couple of things were really striking to me. Obviously, I had been around recovery enough to know that these things were true, but experiencing them was something different than an intellectual understanding. I experienced 2 things that were profound. One, people were coming back to treatment 8, 9, 10, 11, sometimes 20 times. And that was something that I was very curious about. right? And I think well-intentioned counselors, therapists, coaches were saying, what are you going to do differently this time? Which of course is important. But I also was wondering what we could do differently as well to meet people where they're at. And that's a phrase that gets thrown around. So maybe we can dive more deeply into it.
Right.
The other piece that was really striking to me was that I heard clinicians talking about their clients as if they were broken as their diagnosis. She's so borderline. And I became curious about that as well, because my own experience of taking this journey back to my own wholeness, I came to an understanding that when I saw myself as broken, I acted broken in the world. And that led to an addiction because I was trying to numb out this sense of there's something fundamentally wrong with me. And then working in the field, obviously sponsoring people in the 12-step programs, but more so, I think working in the field, every single person I worked with had so much shame. And I think sometimes we were trying to heal shame with shame, and it just doesn't really work.
Yeah. So I want to go back to when you were 18 months sober. What did you do to get through that time?
I met a woman named Mary Helen. She was someone who was very much into a different approach to recovery. And that approach was returning to our own wholeness, not we're broken and we need to fix ourselves, but we came into the world as a whole and perfect being. We started believing we were broken and therefore experienced the brokenness of the world. And the addiction was an outpicturing, if you will, or I call it a brilliant strategy, right? A brilliant strategy to survive. And that fundamental difference made all the difference for me personally, because I thought I'm broken and I need to fix myself. And when she said, what if you're a whole, she used to say to me in her beautiful Southern accent, darling, you're so precious. And I would literally think I was going to be sick to my stomach. Mm-hmm. Because it was completely incongruent with not only my thoughts of myself, but the energy.
Felt, everything.
Yeah.
Well, they say now normal is broken. I'm not sure what that meant exactly when I read it, but
where did you read it?
This guy named Jesse Sitzler. He's friends with David Goggins. He just bicycled across America with 5 other guys. So really an amazing man. He said the normal is broken right now, and everyone's looking to fix it. Mm. Yeah, I don't know. It just kind of stirred in me when you said that.
It is interesting. I'm not sure what he means by it, but when you're saying it, I'm thinking what we consider to be normal right now.
It's not there anymore.
It's not necessarily really serving us the way it once did, maybe.
That it used to.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So now we're in this
we're in this fix the world phase.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, really, it's kind of interesting. So that's kind of interesting. It seems to me that she had almost, I've been in this industry since 2001. So I've been working in the treatment field for a long time.
Yeah.
I've owned Hope by the Sea for 20 years. And, so I've seen every aspect of how things have changed and evolved and, but a big thing that started to change was that we started not saying that alcohol and drugs were the problem.
Right.
They were the solution.
Yes.
And it sounds like even way back then, this lady was basically telling you this.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that became a very different approach for me, right? Because I wasn't thinking if I could just get sober, I would be okay, because that's what had happened for me. I had this incredible first year, right? We might call it the pink cloud. Mm-hmm. I was so grateful to actually be going to work. I was so grateful to not be hungover. I was so grateful to actually sleep at night. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
But more than that, I think what I was most grateful for was a community. Like I had connection with people, and that was really so rich and so important to me. And then came this place where I realized I hadn't yet addressed any of the underlying root causes. Right. I wasn't even aware what those might be.
Right.
And so there it was, this moment where I didn't know if I could continue to live, but I also realized, of course, I couldn't continue to live pretending like everything in my past was all perfect. You know, I was that person that would have told you I had the perfect childhood when I came into recovery. And then about a year in, I had the most horrible, awful parents in the world. Right. And then, after doing a lot of this healing, I said, wow, I had the perfect childhood. Not because everything that happened wasn't painful, but because it was
emotionally you were
perfect for
okay
me.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about that kind of on this podcast a lot about even like, you know, because Shane and I were both bullied as kids, and that bullying has turned us into these incredible men that we've become, you know, and mine was because of it was because of a couple things, but I was molested, but then I was also a very chubby kid, and I got made fun of a lot, and it really like affected my just my self-esteem, my self-worth, but at the same time, I wouldn't change it for anything, because now I'm a guy that gets up in the morning and I grind and I'm tough and I go to the gym and I strive to be a better person, and because of that pain I went through and the healing that has happened, I choose to be a good person today and nice to everybody that I come in contact with. And it's just a blessing. It's perfect. What I went through is perfect, has perfectly made me the man that I am today.
Well, I love what you're saying because it's so layered, right? When we look at something like sexual trauma, which I also experienced, what we don't want to say is, oh, it was just all perfect and it made you the person you are today, without saying, yes, but it also was very painful. Very painful. And that when we get to the other side of it, which is what I hear you saying, once I'm healed from that, then I realized like I wouldn't change any of it.
No.
Because there was something about that really changed who I am on planet Earth, right? And, you know, when we talk about this kind of deeper healing, a lot of times we think it's only in the mind, right? Let me change my narrative. We hear this a lot now, change your thinking, or we might even in some recovery circles or some modalities talk about opposite action, right? In 12-step, we might say, you know, change your action and then your thinking will catch up. But with my approach, and again, this is like not like I'm the only one saying this, but like we're in this new era right now where we're starting to look at things differently. And when we look at something as significant as sexual trauma, it's not so much about what happened. It's more about what did you decide about yourself as a result of what happened at a very young age. And for me, I was so young that I didn't even have a conscious memory of it. I was probably 2 or 3 years old. But what had happened is I had decided at a very deep level I was broken. I had so much shame about it, even though I didn't have a conscious memory. And I was trying to heal myself only intellectually. And I came to understand that as a small child, our brains aren't even developed. So it wasn't a mental process coming to these conclusions, and it didn't even need to be logical, because we can say to someone, it wasn't your fault that you were sexually abused, but why is there a part of me that still feels so much shame, even though I intellectually understand I didn't do anything to cause that? That's because we need to get back and really start healing ourselves from that younger place and having compassion for where we originated these core false beliefs.
And that's, you know, you're right. I took a course in Santa Monica, it was a spiritual master's course. And they said, go back to your youth. And they had you stand up in front of 200 people and go back to that 8-year-old or that 5-year-old that was abused or whatever happened, and hug that person and say, you know what, I'm here now for you, and it was not your fault.
Yeah.
It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the biggest part of that is allowing ourselves to feel that which wasn't safe to feel then.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, when I was in, I guess, kind of a spiritual master's course as well, I volunteered at the beginning of a week-long intensive to use my life as an example. And on Friday, I was literally in the fetal position sobbing. And it was things that I thought I had healed. And this was maybe 20 years ago, but I thought I had healed the stuff around homophobia, the stuff around being called the F word on a daily basis, you know, in Indiana. Right. Oh no, I'm fine. I've healed all that. And it was like one thing that the instructor said to me, what was it like for you when? And I just broke down. And I realized at that point that it wasn't about me talking myself out of the shame. It was about embracing that. And that's a very, very different way of healing.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. I like embracing it.
Yeah.
You know,
How did you embrace it? Let me wrap my
that's
head
a
around
no. That's a good question.
it. It is, yeah. I'm
That's
just
a
want to wrap
powerful
my head
question.
around it.
Well, I realized I had spent most of my life running from the experience of now,
Yeah.
right? And you know, in its simplest form, that's addiction. Addiction is let me change what's happening right now, the way I'm feeling, what I'm experiencing outside of myself, inside of myself. Let me change the thought, but mostly let me change the feeling. And I had been running from it. You know, again, I was 20 years sober. So I'm like, I was still running from the experience of what it was like for me, what it was really like for me. Because I went through the period of blaming others, blaming my mom, blaming my dad, blaming Indiana in the 1970s, which
Right.
there's plenty to point to.
Yeah, there is.
But then I shifted to blaming myself and I didn't realize it. And blame is such a low frequency, right? It's a low level of consciousness. So I started blaming myself and then I was brutalizing myself. I shouldn't feel that way. And there was support in my recovery circles. What are you feeling and how do, you know, we talked about the steps. What step do you need to work so you don't feel this way? And at one point it's like, no, this is about embracing the feeling. What would I be experiencing without attaching a story to it? Just being present with what I'm feeling and going back and allowing the 3-year-old, the 4-year-old, the 5-year-old to actually feel.
I like what you said. So you're going back without, without bringing your mind into it.
Right.
Only your heart.
Yeah.
Really.
What would I be experiencing without this story?
Yeah. That's amazing. That's wow. That's crazy. It's
That-
just pure pain or whatever.
Yeah, that question alone has been a fundamental shift in the way I am with myself in the world.
Yeah.
I like it because in a way it reminds me of something that I learned in a treatment therapy session and just learning how to just feel feelings and being okay with the fact that this feeling feels weird, you know, and I stopped putting a negative or a positive connotation on a feeling.
Right.
I was like, okay, this is just a feeling and it's okay. It's this one's uncomfortable because I've never learned. I've always pushed it away or I've acted out in anger or I've done something to just not feel it.
Yeah.
Now I embrace feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I love what you're saying because it's something I talk about often. And that is there's no such thing as a negative emotion.
Yeah.
And I've walked into treatment centers that literally have on the board positive and negative emotions. And of course, if something's negative, what do I want to do? Get rid of it. And what is addiction? Get rid of it.
That's where growth is, though.
Yeah.
They don't see that's not, but there is a therapist, and I'm glad you said that because a therapist did tell me a long time ago that feelings are just feelings. They're not negative or positive.
Right.
Happy isn't a positive feeling. It's just like we feel good. We experience this one, but I can feel just as good feeling fear or feeling shame was a hard one for me because like I ended up blaming myself. Like how could I because I do remember being molested and I'm like how could I have let this happen to me?
Right.
You know?
And it's very layered with men who are sexually abused because there's no matter how much we intellectually understand that it's a little boy can't, fight a person off. There's still something that's like, well, you're a man and you should be tough enough.
Yeah.
And it's really, it prevents people from talking about it. I think there are many, many more men who are sexually abused who've never talked about it.
It's been coming out on our podcast often lately.
It's 20%, 30% we're in for sure.
Like 70% of the men that have come on our podcast.
Right. Yeah. It's quite prevalent.
Yeah. And we do a lot, and it's nice because when it's men, like we it's not somewhere that we go with women because unless they go somewhere with it, because we are two men sitting in a room, and we never want to make anybody feel uncomfortable. But when we're talking about like men's health, like this is an important subject, and the reason why I'm willing to talk about it on a podcast is because I want somebody else to talk about it. I went through a lot of pain and misery because I kept it in until I was like 34 years old. And then all I had done was exposed light to it. I never actually did any work on it. And at a long time clean and sober, I got loaded.
Yeah.
Working in the industry.
Yeah.
And, and it was very painful. And it took me 5 years of pain and misery to come out of this hole, deep, dark hole that I was trying to, I started stuffing it back down with drugs and alcohol again.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure out why I couldn't get clean. Why I was working the steps. I was doing everything AA, or I try not to say that on podcast, but everything the 12-step program told me to do.
Yeah.
I was doing it all.
Well, and I think this is really such a valuable conversation to have, because your experience, I think, is so universal for so many of us in recovery. And that is, we do reach a point, like I talked about my point. I mean, I didn't pick up drugs and alcohol, but I found myself suicidal, right? Yeah. So I was trying to find anyone or anything outside of myself to try to bring relief, right? And it's like we have our umbilical cord in our hand trying to plug in to be fed somewhere, right? And so I mentioned this, a brilliant strategy, right? So we have these core false beliefs, and that's the shame core. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I'm not lovable. And we're trying to find something to disprove that. And then what happens is, of course, there's a shame spiral, because if I feel broken, I act broken, and then I feel more broken, and then we're going downhill.
And you do broken stuff.
Right. And if you're working in the field, right, and then it's like, oh, I can't even let people know this.
Right.
And I don't know what your story was, but I can imagine people then go into secrecy, right? And that's what breeds shame.
Yep.
Because the way we work with shame is we, as you said, shine the light on it. But then there's more to do than just shine the light on it. But that's the important first step.
Yep. And I couldn't figure out why I couldn't do therapy with men. And I'm all, and I had been to treatment, and I had, done a lot of therapy, and I always picked a woman therapist.
Yeah.
Until God was like, nope, you're having a man therapist.
Yeah.
And finally I did the work, and I worked with this guy for 2 years, and it was amazing, and I just don't, there's still this little, and I want to hear more about what you do. But I'm just telling you a little bit of my history, because I think that, maybe as you talk, I'll hear stuff. But what was I saying? I always
You were
therapy with a man.
Yeah, therapy with a man. You were just starting a whole new topic.
Yeah, and well, when I was able to do the therapy with a man, I was able to work through all these issues, and I remember exactly where I was going. I would feel a lot of shame, but I still have this little guy that still pops in my head every once in a while, and he tries to lie to me, like what you were just talking about. He'll try to lie to me and tell me all those things. Now I have tools, though, that I'm like, no, this isn't true, because I have all these the proof of otherwise,
right,
of the things that he tells me. And so that's why I wanted to see how that fits into with the stuff that you do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I would say is that, right, because everything you're saying is so valuable because I didn't even know the narrative was there.
Right.
Right. And once I was aware the narrative was there, it became way more painful than when I didn't know it was there. Right. Then I realized I was brutalizing myself. Right. You talked about the little guy, but it was like this really loud voice. What's the point anyway? You're never going to amount to anything.
Right.
See, you don't know how to have relationships. See, you don't know how to work with money. See, you don't know how, and like all of that. And I went set about on this course of trying to change the narrative. And again, that's really popular now. And I think it's really useful. I was using affirmations. I was doing spiritual practice.
Can't hurt.
But there was a point that I reached that I realized that it really wasn't about changing the narrative. It was about a place of tenderness for where those originated. So in conscious recovery, what we do is we look at where these core false beliefs originated.
That's tough.
And we heal them. Not all of us know the exact moment. Some of us do, right? Like I remember I couldn't tie my shoes in kindergarten. I decided I was stupid. Yeah. It was instant. Many of us don't remember, but when we go back to that younger age, and like you're talking about, we shine the light, but then what do we do from there? And it really is about going in and looking at this greater reality that that's not who we are. Those decisions that we've made aren't who we are. There's a place within us that's unharmed and unharmable, reconnecting with that while also having compassion for the younger self who decided these huge things. I remember when my nephew was 7, I looked at him and thought, he's so perfect. This is this little perfect child. That's the age I decided I was broken.
Right.
It's very sad.
Yeah,
And I had to embrace that sadness and go ahead and feel that.
Yeah.
stopping those messages from the subconscious takes a lot of effort. A lot of effort on a daily, sometimes minute by minute basis.
Yeah.
A lot of people.
A wise person said there are 3 steps: awareness, awareness, and awareness.
Okay, so yeah.
And it is, you know, it can be said that it's hard work, but I also would say, and you know, we've all heard this and said this, it's not as hard as continuing to pretend like everything's okay.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a lot harder to continue to pretend like everything is okay.
Yeah, and push that stuff down.
Yeah.
And you know, we touched on it, so I think it's important to come back to the conversation. And I know gender roles are changing. I mean, everything's thrown up in the air now in so many ways, but for any of us who've been around for a while, men were taught what? Be strong, be brave,
Yeah.
suck it up.
Suck it up.
I had a client who, I think he was 11 or 12 and his father died, and he had a mother and 2 sisters. And he said, not 1, not 2, not 3, but he felt like it was a dozen people came up at the funeral.
You're
Be
the man.
strong now. You're the man. See, you even knew what I was going to
Yeah,
say.
get to work.
Get to work. Be strong for your mom and
Yeah.
sisters. And like what he needed is to actually
Cry.
be able to cry and
Yeah.
feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So these messages are very intense for us.
Yeah.
But it's going too far. God, I'm going to get to, you know what I mean? It's going too far now, though. Like those, you know what I mean? Like back then it was one way, and now it seems like we've shifted 1,000 times past the center.
Well, I think what I'll say about that, and you know, it's easy
It's
these
okay
days
get
to have this
political
be.
here and
What's that?
whatever, political here, and it's, you know.
Well, I mean, what's interesting is that we even would frame it as a political conversation because things get
I feel the
politicized,
same
and they don't
way.
need
You're
to be.
right.
It's
right?
not political.
You're right. You're right.
But
You're right.
what it is, and you know, Jordan Peterson got in trouble,
yes,
right?
he did.
Right. And
We love him.
like I listened to the nuance of what he's saying, and what I heard him say is, let me pause for anyone listening. What I'm really saying here is the answers are always within.
Within.
And yes, culture is changing, and yes, it is nice to be in safe spaces where people don't disagree with us. And then I say, welcome to planet Earth.
Yeah.
I mean, I just went on a cruise with my family, and I will tell you that there were people of all different walks of life on this cruise ship,
Yeah.
including people in my family. And, you know, we have been taught that we live in a polarized country, and I don't believe it. I think what happens is we've been trained to have polarized thinking, right and wrong, good and bad. I have a different opinion than you, so therefore we're different. And it just isn't true. So when it comes to these ideas of gender, what I would love to see is for us to just say, let's just look at who we are at our core, which is always more alike than it is different.
Yeah.
It is.
And this search for, we need to have it be perfect on the outside so that we can feel safe. I understand that, but that's also kind of addiction.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It may not be real. It may not be a reality that could ever be achieved anyway.
And I love what you're saying.
Because the only true peace we can ever find is inner peace.
Yeah.
Darn it, I tried to change the world and it just didn't work.
Yeah, but even that inner peace is getting shaded by parents that have.
I don't know. Now you got it's that some people are going to have to go through whatever they have to go through to get wherever
You know what
they
I'm
need to
saying?
go.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
you're
know?
right.
The issues that I see with any of these type of topics is the media. That is the issue, because you only have 2 medias in this world. You have currently, it's not always been like that, but currently you have a far right and a far left media, and that's all you have. And they and whatever this one says, this one's going to go with the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's entertaining to listen to Fox and CNN.
Oh,
And listen to the way they frame the story. It's like, wow, 2 different realities. And what happens is then we end up identifying with the camp
Yes.
And then we have to believe everything the camp says. And, you know, I mean, I'll tell you for me, what threw all that up in the air is COVID, because I'm like, I'm not buying everything. I'm just, I can't say I'm in this group, therefore I believe all of this.
Yeah.
And I think we have, let's put it this way. I think the greatest gift we can offer ourselves right now is to be in the question instead of looking for answers. Because that need to be right, that need to believe I am my opinions, that need to find people who agree with me, that I think has become an outdated system.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help, because then you can't have conversations with people that have a difference of opinion with you.
Right.
You know, and like, especially on like a political spectrum, it's like I can't have a conversation with somebody that, you know, that voted for a different guy than me.
Right.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Those are the best conversations I ever have, and some of the best friends I ever have.
Yeah. And if I'm willing to realize that I'm not my opinions, then I can be with you and be present with you. I mean, you know, I live in LA, right? What do LA say about people that down here? You're going to go past the orange curtain, right? Like, what does that even mean, right? So we group ourselves even based on the county we live in, right? And it just isn't the whole story here.
We don't like going up to LA very much.
Don't.
I stole my wife from Los Angeles, and she's like, I don't even like going up there anymore.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm an Orange County housewife now.
Yeah.
And she loved LA.
Yeah.
She really loved LA. She grew up there her whole life with, you know, LA. So LA. Now all of a sudden she's so Orange County.
You know, I lived in San Francisco for 30 years and moved to LA in 2020. And people said, you really like LA? Because, you know, San Franciscans, so much judgment about LA.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I've got news for you, San Franciscans. People in LA don't even think about you.
No.
The only thing they say is, it's so cold,
Yeah.
right?
like
But
the
in
food.
San
We
Francisco,
like
we
the
have
food
all
up there
this
in San Fran.
judgment
Yeah.
for some
About
reason
people
about
in
people from
LA.
LA. And it's like, it's fascinating because I think, you know, if we look back, when we were in our infancy as a species, we had to find a tribe to survive.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think, and I'll say unfortunately, that somehow is still in our DNA, that we automatically in some ways look for another and look for people. And that's why when people say I'm looking for like-minded people, I'm going to question that, because it's not really about finding people who agree with me. That's the issue.
How do I grow if I just hang out with people that agree with me?
Right.
Like, how do
I took it a different way when he said you're looking for your tribe, because I come from a small community of maybe 7 or 8 million people.
He's in Canada.
My-
He's Canadian,
My
eh?
religion.
Oh, your religion.
My
your religion.
is a small
Yeah.
group of people. So we look for our tribe.
Yeah.
We bound together.
Yeah.
And when we do business together. We
Yeah.
just keep with each other because it's kept us safe. So is that inbred in our culture? Oh, fuck yeah.
It sure is.
It has to be for survival, though. We
Yeah.
feel.
And so what we ask is that kind of survival what we want to continue to create? So it's not making it wrong.
Right.
It's saying what's the next level of possibility for us as a species, right? And if we want to throw in the spirituality, we would say, are we in a place? I mean, you know, Eckhart Tolle, who I love, says we're moving into an era beyond concepts and ideologies, right? And so that maybe that has kept us safe,
Yeah.
and maybe now it's time for the next level.
Right.
And it does seem to be more intensified, the polarization. And again, the media is feeding that. So I turned off the news in basically 2016, but I got hooked a little bit in 2020, but backed off of it. Right? I'm just like,
It was really hard to not get hooked, man.
Yeah.
Regardless of what side you were on, it was just really hard to not be.
It's so seductive.
Yeah.
It really is.
And we were a captive audience.
Oh yeah. I mean, COVID, all that. It's like I was sitting in here. I had this TV on. This used to be my office before we started the podcast, but we would sit in here and watch Trump and Fauci and the other doctor lady come on every day, and we were trying to figure out how to navigate our business in this COVID world, and we were hoping that every day he would come up with, they would have some new actual real something.
Yeah.
Here we are. How many years later now? Like three full years later, and now they're really saying it's It's not as bad as
Yeah, it
Well,
wasn't.
what I'll say about it, and I don't mind being controversial, honestly. What I will say about it is we shifted into only looking at physical health. And the truth is there's physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. I'm not here to debate the physical part. I'm not a doctor. I'm not here to debate that. When we only focus on that, though, what happened, and we know working in our field,
we know.
mental health suffered.
It was on the rise. I think it was 900%.
And I would say that we're going to see even more
Oh,
in the
yeah.
next year or
Oh,
so.
yeah, for sure.
Because in a way, now I think people are acknowledging we're past it. And when you get past a traumatic experience, that's when the symptoms start to come
Right.
up.
Yeah.
We went into survival
Yeah.
and everything that came with that. And now it's time for some of the emotional and spiritual healing.
Yeah. And you know what was very quietly snuck into the country during that time? Very, very quietly.
Yeah.
That's killing 300 people every day. Fentanyl.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, nobody was talking about fentanyl, but I was treating fentanyl addicts
Right.
every day. This podcast has started because I lost my son-in-law to fentanyl
Mm.
on 9/11, 2022. And Shane and I lost one of our basketball teammates 4 weeks ago. We buried him
Wow.
on Sunday
Wow.
from fentanyl. He had a lot of pain, man.
Yeah.
He had a lot of pain, that stuff that we were just talking about earlier. And he couldn't get past it.
Yeah.
And his solution was to numb his pain. And unfortunately, fentanyl is so fucking powerful that it's like playing Russian roulette with 4 bullets in the chamber
Right.
every time you take a dose.
Right. And when we're looking at people who have the severe trauma, and then you add the collective trauma that we've been through, both politically and with COVID, which got all put together for some reason. Somehow they successfully politicized.
Didn't they? It was amazing.
And then you have a drug like fentanyl. It's like the perfect storm,
Yeah.
right? And then, of course, it's easy to say fentanyl is the problem, which, of course, it is a problem. But we also want to look at what's underneath that.
The problem.
Sometimes we say, well, people are bringing drugs into our country, but like if there wasn't a market, the drugs wouldn't be coming in. So it's multi-layered, right?
Right.
Of course, fentanyl is very deadly. And, back when I was drinking and using, we didn't crack had just come out and we were told if you could use it once and die instantly, that kind of thing. And I was honestly afraid to do it. But we're looking at these drugs that are really deadly now. And the drugs aren't the problem, and yet the drugs are actually causing these deaths. So that's, of course, a problem.
Right.
But we need to address not only the problem of
Yeah.
fentanyl, but the deeper underlying root causes of why people are doing it.
And that is the truth. If we stopped fentanyl coming in, it's just going to be heroin.
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Now I will say that when it was just heroin, in the 18 years that I was in this business, prior to fentanyl, and it was just heroin, in the 4 years after that, we have lost more people.
Yeah.
In my life and in that of alumni or whatever, lost more people in those 4 years than the entire 18.
Absolutely.
There's so many things, because you said if there wasn't a market for it, there's the customer, but man, if the drug dealer had more consequences, maybe they wouldn't be wanting to sell the most deadly drug on the planet.
Yeah. There are so many layers, right? And I think what ends up happening when we get in these conversations is we start to think, well, let's identify what the problem is and fix it. And yet there are many, many layers to the conversation.
other part
What
of
you're
the-
Saying is absolutely
There's
true.
other parts of the conversation is like, why aren't these people getting help?
Yeah.
Because I can tell you right now that the ones that come in and they want help, because we work with insurance companies and they're giving us 14 days of
Right.
RTC
Right.
and setting them off into PHP. And these are fentanyl addicts.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and then we house, they're ready to go home, or they go to a sober living that, either we own or somebody else owns. And then they can kind of come and go as they want. There's rules in structured living, but it doesn't mean that somebody's not going to bring fentanyl into the house and die in the house.
Right.
And this is the treatment that we're giving them.
Well, the entire Western medical model is what are your symptoms and how do we eradicate them? And so if we're looking at addiction, it's classified as a disease and we're using the Western medical model. And so the insurance company says, well, you're not using, so you're better.
All better.
All better, right? And we know that is like not even close to the truth, right?
Yeah.
And so with my work, I'm saying let's get down to the root causes, and I identify the root causes of addiction as unresolved trauma, spiritual disconnection, and toxic shame.
Yeah.
And that's not going to happen in 14 days, right? We can touch on that. We can start to help someone
to identify one or two of those.
Right. And the issue with the treatment industry, if you will, unfortunately, is we are constrained by the insurance companies. And so in many ways, we've agreed collectively that the model is we're not going to do the deeper work. We're just going to help someone stabilize them and get them the resources they need. The issue is it's not working. Right. It is working, but it's not working for everyone. And
the recidivism rate's really high, nationwide.
Yeah.
I don't even want to hear anybody tout their recidivism rate because they're lying. I just don't even want to hear it anymore.
Yeah.
I will sit on this podcast and tell you that it's really high and it sucks and people are dying.
Yes.
And that's what I'll say. And we need to do more. This podcast is a movement to face all of this stuff. And as I'm talking with you, like you're bringing up more stuff. Like, yeah, I'm attacking the government because they could actually write legislation that would force the insurance companies to actually give somebody the appropriate treatment that they deserve, that they need and deserve. We deserve it. We work with veterans as well. And the VA system is a lot better than it's broken too, though. Everything's broken. But their system of, giving people days RTC is phenomenal compared to what private insurance does. The problem with the VA is it's really hard for me to get a veteran into community care. So because they want to try to fix them themselves, they think that, maybe they should be able to do it in-house. But with any program, it's like we got to all start working collectively together. It can't be the government versus the private sector versus, if something's working, let's keep doing it.
Yeah. Well, and I think what you're speaking to is also the sort of tendency for people to think they have the answer. And I hope I never think I have the answers.
There's no real answer.
I have a lot of questions, though. And one of the questions is what you're asking, how can we do better? How can we come together? Veterans, that topic is so layered, right? And I remember I was doing a training, and there was a veteran in the room, and he just broke down crying, and he said, I understand at this moment something I never understood before, and that is I grew up in a war zone, and then I chose one.
Yeah.
And so he had PTSD, and what we know about PTSD is the question, why do some people go to war and not have PTSD, and some people come back with it? And what the evidence is showing, again, this is measured, but it's early childhood trauma is being reactivated.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's a very, very deep subject with veterans, and how do we actually help someone heal and talk about a system where the answer is kind of like, man up, whether you're male or female, right? Just, push through it. And that's not really the way that we're going to heal some of this deep trauma.
Yeah.
And there are layers to that conversation, obviously.
Yeah, but with these layers, it's almost like we have to bring in Border Patrol. We have to bring in therapists. We have to bring in the government to fight the cartel. You're talking heavy layers.
There's a lot of layers to this. It's a conversation that has to be had, and that is why we're building this platform, because this is a bipartisan platform, because we all have a common goal of healing one another, because that's actually how we heal, right? We end up healing. We don't really truly heal on our own in the dark room.
Right.
You can do work in the dark room, but I need you guys. To be able to have these discussions to get that internal insight to work on the stuff that I need to work on.
Right.
And when it comes to addiction, substance abuse, mental health, which is what the Hopeaholics is all about, we've got to treat the underlying issues.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we can do, so this is what I've come to. I can do whatever I can to try to change the system, but I can also work with the person right in front of me. And sometimes that person right in front of me is me.
Yeah.
So my work primarily now is I go into treatment programs and I do an experience with clinicians to help them do their own healing.
Nice.
So that they can be more present with the people they're working with.
So nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
So needed.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
needed.
Because we talk a lot about about mindset and becoming the best versions of ourselves, and that all comes with healing. When you're in the and it also comes with the stuff that you feed your mind with, right? If you're feeding your mind with positive stuff all day long, you have positive thoughts and positive results. But I don't care what clinician you are, you're not getting fed that all day long. When you're in a group setting, when you're in one-on-ones, you're getting fed tragedy, pain, loss, for hours, 8 hours a day, 6 hours a day.
Right.
You've got to do your own work.
Yeah, and that really is the message, because I think we're kind of we're switching tracks, but it's the same conversation. Interestingly enough, right?
Always.
The symptoms versus the underlying root causes, right? So in our industry, there's such a high degree of burnout, and I see people changing jobs because this treatment program will be better. I'm going to go work over there. I'm going to go into private practice. It'll be different. I'm going to go work for like a big company. It'll be different. And I'm going to go work for. And the truth is, in my experience, that burnout comes from me thinking that my clients are broken and it's my job to fix them.
Yeah.
And when I do my own healing, I realize there's something innate within every person that can heal. And my role is to facilitate that healing, not to do that healing.
Right.
And then the work can be energizing. So, simply said, the only thing, and this, it's a little bit of a provocative statement, but I enjoy that. The only thing I really need to do for my clients is my own healing, but only 100% of the time.
You know what? Wow, bro, I just read something the other day, and this is with parenting also. This man, a therapist, asked his son, who is now 20, what could I have done different as a parent? I did all I could. What do you think I could have done different? And the son said, you could have worked on yourself a little more.
Right.
Not so much for me.
Right.
Don't always drive me to the store. Don't always be at my games, but work on yourself. Be a better you.
Yeah.
And by being a better you, you're a better father. I just read that yesterday.
Yeah.
So what you're touching on goes right to the family as well.
Yeah, and that it's at the heart of our work because, whatever opinion you have about the treatment industry, and we can talk about good players and bad players, but the truth. Well, yeah, of course we do. But the truth is, in my experience, the truth is at the heart of it, people start in this field because they want to make a difference.
Yeah.
That's exactly true.
Yeah.
And so, how do we help them get back in touch with that?
Right.
What is my actual purpose here, and what needs to be healed? Because here's what happens in our field. We say, well, we're a short-term program, so we don't address trauma. We get them stabilized and get them the care they need after treatment. We get them, connected with the trauma therapist, and all that sounds great. But the issue with it is someone is literally bleeding out on our floor, and we're not letting them address the trauma. And I have a theory, and that theory is that if I haven't healed my own, I can't possibly be present for you. And what I want to be clear, I'm not saying that treatment needs to be about digging in 14 days and getting into all that trauma. But if someone is, a young woman came up to me, I went to a treatment program to do a presentation, and she was someone I had known, had gone through treatment before. And she said, they won't let me talk about my rape here. And she was in treatment for the 20th time. And so the same cookie cutter approach wasn't working for her. And I think there's an unconsciousness around it's too scary to let someone actually address that because maybe it's too scary for me to be present with it.
Yeah. It's a whole new angle I'm looking at now when you said that.
Yeah, I hear a lot of stuff, man.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I ever agree with everything I hear, because I hear stuff like what we were saying, that it's too soon, or we don't have enough time with them. We're just going to open up a wound,
Right.
and we don't have time to close it. And but I could tell you, there's like workshops that are 5 days long,
Right.
that are incredibly healing in
Right.
5 days.
Right. And I
Yeah.
think
You've been to
no,
one. I think it was 7. Yours was 7 days,
Yeah,
right?
7 days.
3 days, and then or 4 days, and
Yeah.
then what was it?
I've been to 2 of them.
2 of them.
Yeah, I went for smoking cessation.
Uh huh.
5 days up in Northern Cal, and then I went.
Was the other one 5 days?
Other
Or
one was 7 days also.
7?
3 and 4.
3 and 4,
Yeah, for
right?
mental health. Yeah. Yeah.
We had that lady on the podcast. Her
Yeah.
name is what?
Patty Minor.
Patty, and her program
Unearthed.
is Unearthed.
Unearthed.
Mm.
Yeah, she gets really deep trauma.
But it amazes me, because how can we say that? We have these people in RTC, and granted, I say 14 days, but our average length of stay for RTC is like 21 days plus the 7 days detox, and then you add PHP on top of that, because I'm pretty sure like 90% or at least 75% of treatment programs now are a full continuum of care.
Right.
That's how we're able to get like 90 plus days of a stay.
Right.
Can do a lot of work.
A lot of work.
Can do a lot of work.
And I think for someone listening, what I don't know what you're saying. I'm going to say what I'm not saying. What happens is we tend to think what you said. We're going to open up a wound and we can't close it up, right?
Yeah.
And I think that model isn't really working.
No, it's not.
And what I want to be clear about is I'm not saying we're going to meet with someone on their 3rd day in treatment and get them to talk about all their trauma.
Right.
Because that, I think, is the biggest misnomer. And I work with so many clinicians, and I can't tell you how many times I hear this phrase: I've been taught that's beyond my scope and I'm not allowed to do it.
Mm.
And I understand the spirit of that, because trauma healing isn't about going back and re-experiencing the trauma. It's about what's present for you right now. It's not the memory. Bessel van der Kolk says trauma doesn't show up as a memory, it shows up as a reaction. And the reaction is addiction.
Okay, I get it.
Right. And
I would have
so,
never been able to remember that guy's name that he just said.
it took me a long time. I had the opportunity to sit down and meet him a few
Okay.
weeks ago. And I'm
You
like,
did?
I need to get this man's name right if I'm going to go meet him. And by the way, he's an incredible human and just incredible. I absolutely loved meeting him. The key here is what's present right now in our bodies, in our spirits, in our psyche.
How you're acting or
Well,
reacting.
what the energy that's present,
Right.
right? And so, Bessel's book is The Body Keeps the Score. It's in there. And what happens is, let's say I'm a counselor, right? And I've been taught it's beyond my scope, and I'm facilitating a group. There's 25 people in the room, and someone talks about their rape. And what happens with me? Anxiety. Oh shit, what's about to happen? So it feels safer to close that person down for the safety of the group. But the issue with all of that is all we need to do is be present for a few minutes.
Just listen.
Just for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Because the addiction is a strategy to escape from now. So recovery is being present with what's happening now. So I'm not saying that someone is a trauma expert because they've, what I am saying is we can be present and just say, what are you noticing right now? And let the group have that process. Not let's dig in and talk about it more. What are you noticing right now? Let's get some feedback. Let's be present with what's showing up. Because when someone can sit with themselves for 2 minutes, that's so healing. We don't need to even go back and process. Did you notice that you just sat with that pain for 2 minutes? No, they sat with it. So in the groups that I've created in the curriculum, Conscious Recovery, like for example, we do a group on shame and it's authenticity, right? Which is the way you work with shame. We don't define authenticity. We don't talk about authenticity. There's an actual process where people get really authentic and they have an energetic shift. And that's something that they take with them. That's not just in the mind.
Yeah, just let them sit in it. That's why I was taught when someone is in it or crying, don't pass them a Kleenex.
Right.
Don't rub them on the shoulder. Don't ask them, are you okay? Just let them sit there, cry, feel their pain, and when they're ready, they're going to talk again.
Exactly.
Yeah. That was really powerful.
People are that was a taught reaction to jump up and get people a tissue.
Yeah.
Right.
Dry up your tears.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
It is. It can be uncomfortable to watch people cry.
Yeah.
It doesn't really bother me though.
No.
It's what bothers me more is my ugly face when I'm crying in front of a group of people.
Well, but you've allowed yourself to do that.
Oh,
now.
I do it now on this. If you watch some of our podcasts, I've cried.
Well,
If I start to talk about Justin and that one fucks me up because it's like, I got a phone call at 7:30 in the morning from my daughter screaming because she just found Justin dead in his bed.
right. And because you allow yourself to feel, you can then allow others to feel around you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really the work we do.
And I like it, man. I like it. I like this. I like what you got going on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We had no idea who we were talking to. We just, we were just told, hey, call this guy up, have him come in, do your podcast. That's what we do most of the time.
That's perfect. That's what I do too. I didn't do any research on you guys. I just showed up. Like,
Yeah.
Let's turn on the camera and the microphones and see what happens.
See what happens. And that's how we do. We also are a believer at the Hopeaholics. We don't do any editing. We just, whatever happens on camera is supposed to happen. Yeah. We've had funny stuff happen. We've had I had a brain fart today, right? And I'm like, what the hell was I talking about? I do that often on the podcast. Sometimes I never remember either. And then I'll be like, because I go back and listen to every podcast when it comes out. And I'll be like, it was acceptance, you idiot. That's what you were trying to say.
You see, but here's what we're talking about. Even that talk, that's negative talk.
Right.
And I was reading a book the other day, even in jest or when you're joking with yourself, God, you're such an idiot. Like he was just joking. We should not get used to that.
Words have power.
Words have power, even jokingly.
Well, it's interesting you say that because some of the commonly used language we use in our field, I'm interested in reframing.
Yeah.
For example, triggers. When I do a group, Conscious Recovery, there's a group on triggers, and we ask people, what are your triggers? And about 98% name something outside of themselves. My mom, my job, my girlfriend, my partner.
Yeah.
And how I've reframed it is it's activation. It's not the other person. It's the wound that got touched. Right. And we can actually heal that. Again, we spend so much time. I remember early working in the field, and a counselor took clients out to a movie, and there was cocaine use in the movie. And people were outraged. Clients were outraged. How could you take us around this and witness this? And we're in treatment. And some of the therapists jumped on board. Yeah, they should never see that. It's like, they're not going to.
They should never go to the grocery store if they're an alcoholic.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, it's so funny. I don't know if you remember in COVID, there was this big campaign that Trader Joe's shouldn't have their line in the wine aisle because of people in recovery.
Oh, wow.
And I understand that, but that's going back to what we were saying, trying to keep everyone and everything safe externally isn't the deeper work. And we do that in recovery too.
Because when you do the deeper work, that alcohol in that wine aisle doesn't even look appealing to
It doesn't have power over us.
Notice it.
Right.
I honestly don't notice it.
I don't either.
I don't go to Trader Joe's often, but they have the best apples. They're really,
and their bananas are still 19 cents a pound for the last 30 years.
apples-
Really? Yeah, really.
Their apples are like $1.25 or something, and it's not like per pound. It's like per apple.
Yeah.
And I go get the biggest.
Those are the Fiji apples.
I don't get the
bro.
Fiji. I get the
The
This
Fiji
is
are
the stuff that. This is
$4
why our podcast goes an hour and a half to 2 hours.
You don't shop.
I do too.
Do you?
Yes, I do my own grocery shopping.
Personal
yes,
stuff,
I do.
not for the family.
Not for the family.
Okay, yeah. I can't shop. I just can't. I'll go in for a pack of dog food or something, but even then I get lost. I just don't like it.
I go pretty much every Sunday.
Yeah.
To
So
the
what
grocery
what I was wondering was, whenever I get upset at my wife or someone telling me something, that's me not having worked on something.
Well, I'll take it to this. So Don Miguel Ruiz says it's not your word.
Who says something?
Don Miguel Ruiz,
Yeah.
who wrote the book, The Four
Don
Agreements.
Yeah, I know this guy.
Yeah,
This
okay.
guy I know.
So he says, it's not your words that hurt me. It's that you've touched an unhealed wound.
Damn you.
But what I love about this is I go to the next, I say, and it's being touched because it's wanting to heal. And as long as I'm saying,
I get it.
like, you know, my story, my mom should be more loving. Like, what could be, I mean, she's not going to be that. She is not ever going to be that nurturing, loving mother. But I was obsessed with it. I want her to be more loving. And then, you know, I realized it's not about that. It really is when she says something and it touches this unhealed wound. And of course, we can say she knows how to push my buttons because she installed them. But that button is now my responsibility.
I like what you're saying.
So things are going to get better at home now, Shane.
Things are, and I'll tell you something. You just got to take the same angle you do with your mother, because I like that example. When my mom, when I was younger, she'd say, "Get up, go to bed. Breakfast is ready." It was a Sunday, but I heard, "Get up, you lazy slob. It's fucking 10:30. I'm making breakfast for the 100th fucking time. You do nothing around the house." That's what I heard.
Has she said that to you before?
Never.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when we have these core false beliefs,
Yeah.
we walk around, for example, if I have a core false belief, I'm not lovable, that's a frequency. It's not a thought, or it's not a thought only. I can walk into a room vibrating with I'm not lovable, and I will find the person that will help confirm the core false belief.
Nice.
They're not bad people.
Yeah.
I had a series of very interesting relationships my first 5 years of sobriety with perfectly wonderful people. But it was because I felt unworthy and unlovable that I chose them. It was this karmic contract, if you will. I couldn't do other than that. And so we talk about like removing toxic relationships. That's really popular now. But really the toxicity is happening within, not from a place of blame, but from once I heal this, as I heal this, I have a different vibration and I have different choices that I'm making.
Right. And sometimes when your vibration changes, and there are people in your life that are staying in your life and they have some toxicity, they start to change too, though, because your vibration is changing.
Right.
You know?
And sometimes people leave.
Sometimes they leave.
Right.
That was my other point.
Yeah.
Sometimes they leave.
Yeah.
And I have a choice to either try to hold on to them or realize that that's a perfect part of the evolution.
Well, we're
Some
going
people
back to
are- Some people are only meant to be in your life for seasons.
Yeah.
However many seasons. And there's other people that are meant to be in your life forever.
A reason, a season, or a lifetime.
Yeah.
Season or lifetime, yeah.
I get most of my good shit that I spit out right here from YouTube videos on motivation.
Perfect.
Yeah. That's why I only fill my mind. I no longer fill my mind with garbage.
Yeah.
I was very into like, and I'm lying. I was about to tell a bold-faced lie. It's not only, I feed myself with some gangster rap still. I still like to feel like, a street thug every once in a while.
Yeah.
Makes me feel, like I bring that ego out a little bit every once in a while.
Yeah.
But that's all I used to listen to, gangster rap, Metallica, just whatever it was. And now I fill my mind with positive motivational speakers, audiobooks.
Yeah.
I get in my car. You get in my car and an audiobook comes on. I have to like turn press pause because like nobody. Nerd.
Well, it's interesting because sometimes when we have this conversation, people will hear, and I know you're not saying this, but like it's wrong to watch this. Like I'm not saying it's wrong to watch the news. What I'm asking is what gets created when you do it.
Right.
Right. And then it becomes like, what kind of choice do I want to make? Because the truth is none of us change unless we want to.
Right.
Right. And so like, if I say I shouldn't be watching the news, what do I want to do?
I want to watch it.
I want to watch it more.
Yeah.
Right. Oh yeah. I shouldn't be doing this. I'm going to lurk in the shadows and watch Fox and CNN. Right. I mean,
I would sometimes be watching Fox and then I'd have to switch over to CNN to see what they were saying.
yeah,
And it was like just insane.
literally.
I for a while I was only allowing myself like 15, 20 minutes max of the news just to see what was going on. Because anything after that, it repeats, right?
For sure.
It's the same thing. So then I'm just filling my mind with garbage, right? And so I was allowing myself, but I actually stopped. It's really started to bore me the more I started filling my mind with the good stuff, with audio books, with, positive motivational speakers, and focusing more on what I can do to make this place
solution oriented
better. Because what I started to realize is that politics, the media, and maybe the guys up in Washington are all sitting together, Democrat, Republicans, laughing at us, like going, "Look at how divided we have them. We are in charge now.
What do you want to do now, guys?
What do you guys want to do?"
Let's really fuck these guys up.
I could be.
I don't know that it is.
I think mostly it's consciousness, though, right?
But
when I believe I'm right, then what does that make you automatically?
Wrong.
Right. And so that's politics.
Yeah.
I have the solution.
And those guys, I know that they don't have the solution.
Right.
Because they try to do stuff in this industry, and I'm just like, what the hell are you? It's the state level. I'm like, what are you guys writing this crappy ass policy and now forcing us to do treatment this way?
Right.
When what we were doing prior to this actually wasn't broken.
Yeah.
Now this system's broken. They forced in California in 2016, they stopped allowing us to bring the RTC people to the center, right? This is the center. And you had to do all your groups and everything.
Oh, I remember that.
In the home, which tripled our payroll because that's how many more clinicians we had to hire, right? So now somebody who's got 0 to 20 days does not get the juice of somebody who has 60 to 90 days, who's already gone this much farther. Right. And you used to have that. A guy with 90 days clean and sober can really help somebody with 4, 5, 6, 10 days sober.
Yeah.
It's a bit like, dude, I wanted to leave too, at right where you're at. It really sucked, but I'm so glad I held on. Look at where I'm at. Versus me as I'm not a clinician, but if I were a clinician, I'm just going to use myself as an example, or even just a worker in a treatment center sitting down with a guy and saying, "You really don't want to leave, man." They're not going to hear it from me as they would from a peer who just was there 60 days ago. It's just those kind of little things that the government thinks they're making good policy.
And then we have to get creative, right?
Oh,
about how we
get creative.
Yeah.
Every time they come down here to do a visit, Why are you looking at me like that?
We can talk about that later.
Well, and to be clear, what I mean about creative,
let's
like
talk
for
about the government off camera, okay?
well, and what I mean about being creative, I want to be clear. I'm not saying we're like not following the protocol,
follow
but
all
like
the protocols
you
and
can do
guidelines.
like the process groups in the house, and then you can bring people together for community meeting. You can bring people together and have still build that community that you're
They
speaking
have
to.
to
that's
have
so
community.
important.
It really is
Have to.
important, and
Camaraderie.
and I'm willing to fight back, because honestly, I don't even run my programs anymore. So I'm just sitting in here doing podcasts all day.
Beautiful.
They could take me off the books if they want. It's okay if I piss the government off too much. Chad no longer works for the programs. Sorry, right? I mean, but I do like I want to have a community that's big enough because they really should be asking us. This isn't, free programs suck. Everybody in the world knows that county funded programs aren't that good. Private sector is better, but we could always be better. And the way we could become better is by coming together and, asking questions.
Right. And the question is, how can we continue to do better?
Mm-hmm.
How can we continue to be open to new ideas? How can we continue to be aware of how we can actually treat someone at a much deeper level than we have?
Right.
And this idea that there's one way, I think, is something that we're aware of. It's no longer true, right? And, you know, I mean, I think we're seeing that shift, and that comes with its own growing pains. But I think we're in a time, someone came up to me at a training and said, "Oh, I hope you're not one of those holistic guys." I'm like, "Oh, this is going to be a fun 8 hours together." Right? Because what does holistic even mean? I mean, to me,
because this person was a straight was a straight stepper.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
The only thing that works.
Yeah, and you know what? And so to just, you know, to be clear or to be transparent, that I was that person. I was 18 months sober right before I was suicidal, interestingly enough. And I thought, there's only one path, there's only one way, and I'm going to tell you exactly what. Oh, you're having a hard day? Read page whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right. So I come from that, and I understand now that rigidity came because there was so much unhealed within me, and I had found a life.
Right.
And I wanted to share it with the world.
Yeah.
So it was a beautiful thing.
Read Ann's story.
You know, a lifeboat can get you back to land.
Yeah. That's it, though.
Huh?
That's it.
It could get you to a beautiful ship too.
Yeah, that's it, though. Then the work starts.
Then the work starts. And as I started doing some of my own, you know, my own pathway of healing, I realized there's not one path. There are many paths.
Yeah.
And what is true for me today isn't good. That's why I didn't really want to write, you know, I've written 3 books now. I didn't necessarily want to write a book because I could read a page out of that and say, "Oh, I don't agree with that."
that's what I'm
I
saying.
wrote it. It was that's so 5 years ago. Right? I mean, and that's just, we're constantly
what I thought
evolving.
of 5 years ago.
Right.
That should be the next book.
Well, and you know, the founders of 12-step, they said that. They're like, we know, they literally say we know only a little, but people are like dismissive of that, right? And so like, I imagine.
I forgot that part was in the book.
Right.
We only know a little.
That's in the book.
That is in the book. It's only one line, though.
There's more though. There's more that they point to. We're going to always evolve.
You're right. They said we could go to outside sources when we need
Well, yeah,
medical.
thank God they put that in there.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, sponsors would be telling you that
Don't go to the
doctor.
Well, that was happening in 1986 when I got sober.
Yeah.
Literally, sponsors telling people, "Don't take your psych meds," and you know,
No bueno.
no bueno.
No, I know.
No
People
bueno.
need some. So not everybody needs psych meds, but some people actually do need psych meds.
There's a woman that I got sober with, and she was very rigid, and she basically told her sponsee to stop taking psych meds. Her sponsee jumped off of a 3rd floor in the Dallas Galleria where I got sober and almost died. And she said, I'm not going to visit her. I don't condone suicide. It's like,
God.
oh, you're the person who told her to get off her meds. And right, meds aren't right for everyone, but for some people.
Yeah, they're a necessity.
Right. So, I mean, again, physical,
and then we have
intellectual.
a full other paradigm in treatment, because if you don't put people on psych meds in addiction treatment, the insurance company won't give you more days.
That could be another 2-hour podcast.
we could podcast all day. I mean, that's why I think sometimes we're in here.
Let's order Uber Eats.
Right.
Oh crap! It already is like 12:16. Did we cover enough of your book yet? No, we
Oh my
have
gosh,
not.
it's perfect.
This is good stuff. This you right here.
That's
Look at that
me.
handsome guy.
Look at that handsome guy.
Oh,
My
yeah.
client said, "I like that picture of you when you were young." I said, "It's not when I was young. That is Photoshop. Let's get it clear."
You do have some really blue eyes. Huh? I noticed that. Did you notice that?
I did, because they match his jacket, and
Yeah.
he's wearing blue in this jacket too. Blue's his color. He's got blue shoes on as well. I'm sure it's not his only pair.
I'm sure it's not, but I have plenty of blue,
Yeah.
other blue shoes.
You have more than one pair of blue shoes.
Yeah, let's not talk about shoes.
I have
Some
four-
might call it an addiction.
I have
Let's just
four-
leave it at
He's
that.
got a he's got a problem. His are all like Nike, but it's still a problem.
I have 40 pairs. I counted yesterday.
How many?
40.
Oh, I have at least 40 pairs
Yeah.
of shoes.
Let's not talk about it.
Yeah, you've got way more than that.
Let's not talk about
Oh
it.
Lord.
500.
You can get no. Ooh, that would be serious.
Like, oh,
I only have 250. No. I would say I haven't counted, but you would know I was lying.
so how many do you have?
I'm not going to. I'm not revealing that at this time. You can ask my husband. He'll go in and count for you.
My wife has done the
She's got
same
the
thing.
closet.
My wife is like, it's ridiculous. She's like, did you really need another pair of shoes? I said those were dirty.
Right.
It's funny.
You know what? I'm going to go back to you. You know, you said I took the 5-day course. I took the 7-day course, but I was a willing participant, where I had a level of consciousness and a decent way of thinking. I thought at the time, How do we get these kids in nowadays and do that deep therapy in the 14 days or the 21 days as we can do in the 5 days without them running?
Well, yeah, I think there are multiple layers to that. Starting with, I can't get anyone to do anything,
No.
but I can, and this term is way overused, so I'm going to explain what I mean by it. We can hold space for them. And the reason I say it's so overused is we hear that all the time, but what does that actually mean? And it starts with, I'm not here to convince anyone of anything. And I mean, how many times have I sat and listened to a counselor try to convince someone they need to stay in treatment instead of being curious about the part of them who wants to be in the room, right? Because they're not gone yet. If they're in a conversation with me, there's a part of them who wants to be here.
Yeah.
And so people are coming to treatment for all different reasons. Maybe mom sent them. Maybe the system sent them. Maybe their school sent them. Maybe their wife or husband sent them. Whatever the case may be, there's a part of them who wants to be in there and do the healing. So if we can be curious about that part and start to explore that with them, starting with the recognition that they have everything within them that they need to heal. And when I first started working in treatment, I was spiritual director of a treatment program. And I was the person they would call in when anyone was having emotional dysregulation, also known as losing their shit or throwing a fit or packing their bags and leaving. And my mantra was twofold when I would walk to them. One, they're a whole and perfect being. And the other one, I think this is really important. What they're upset about is not what they're upset about.
It never is.
It never is. And yet we negotiate with it. Let me see if I can get you an extra hour of phone privilege.
Yeah.
Right. It's not that. One story, and I'll try to keep it brief. There was a woman, about 30 years old, and I worked at a very bougie treatment program. And a lot of the counselors would call the clients entitled. And I thought, well, that's interesting that you're literally labeling our clients as entitled. What does that create, right? So she was in like the best room with the sunken tub and the view. And 5 minutes before lunch, there was a knock at her door, and the counselor said, you need to move to the basement. We've had to change rooms. Can you do it right now before lunch? She threw a fit, started packing her bags. They told me when I called the call center that I could have my own room and I could have the one with the view. So the person came to me and said, literally, he rolled his eyes and he said, such and such is being so entitled. Can you go sit with her? So right there was a judgment. There was an eye roll. And so I'm like, it's not the room. I don't know what it is, but I know it's not the room. And I also am not going to look at her as damaged, broken, or entitled. I'm just going to be curious with her. So I sat down, listened to her, yell and scream. I didn't agree or disagree. I just listened to her. And that to me is really holding space. And as we sat there, something shifted and she broke down crying. And she said, I was sexually abused in my basement. And I've never told another human being. And so it wasn't just the bathtub and the view.
Man, I want to know what that counselor's face looked like when you went down and told him what the deal was.
Well, what's interesting, so what happened is she had the tears, right? And then she had this breakthrough, and then we got her with her therapist, and her healing could begin at that point.
Yeah.
I don't know whatever came of her. That's an interesting thing working in our field. We don't always get to stay in touch with people.
Right.
But she stayed in treatment. She began her healing process, and so we talk about you can't heal trauma in the first 14 days or 21 or 90, but we can have those moments.
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Those moments where she acknowledges something for the first time ever. And it doesn't mean, oh, we're going to sit here until you're completely healed. But it means that we just got beyond the symptoms. We just got beyond her rage or her entitlement or all these labels. And, we take the DSM and we diagnose someone with something. And do we ever really get to the spirit of it, to the heart of it? What's really going on with this human being? And I remember, a therapist back in that day said, I don't know what you say to people to get them. And I thought, well, listen to the language. I don't say anything and I don't get them to do anything. I just sit with them and realize that what they're saying, what they're upset about isn't it, but there's something. She's having this huge response, this huge reaction.
Yeah.
So that's just, I think it's just a perfect example of what can get created.
Yeah, but I think he's different. He's a good people person. He could judge people. He could relate more. So,
Well, he's coming in with no judgment.
Yeah, coming with no. So it's you're special.
Well, let me be clear.
Yeah.
as a human being, I'm constantly judging.
Right.
But what I invite people to do, including myself, is to suspend judgment to the best of my ability and to look at the person in front of me. Now, I use this language. It doesn't work for everyone. I look at them as a whole and perfect spiritual being, and I connect with them on that level. I'm no better or worse than the person in front of me.
Right.
Pema Chodron, Buddhist teacher, compassion is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded. It is a relationship between two equals.
Okay.
And when I hold that space, this will be a little non sequitur, but it does come back to what we talked about earlier. I did a presentation and I knew my audience. It was a group of clinicians and it was an LGBTQ plus conference. So I kind of knew sort of their point of view in a lot of ways. And so I invited them. The title of this will make me sound really smart too. Checking your unconscious biases in the therapeutic relationship. Sounds so smart. All I mean is like, what are my judgments? What are my judgments? And is it preventing me from being present with you? And so I invited them to look at a slide presentation and just see if they noticed anything in their body. We weren't going to process it. We weren't going to ask them to share it. I'd show like a lesbian couple and a mixed race couple and a couple of an older man with a very young woman. And then I let them have that experience. And then I paused and I showed a slide of someone wearing a Make America Great hat again, or Make America Great Again hat, and a Confederate flag. And I'm like, can you be as present with that person? And if not, what's the work? Because in our personal life, we can choose the friends that we have. But if I'm going to do this work, I'm either going to let my judgment prevent me from having a connection. And I'll get really real with you guys. One of the things I discovered about myself is I was unwilling to be as present for people that I found attractive. That was a judgment. I was afraid to look at them too much. That prevented me, that bias prevented me from being present with someone. And if we're not creating a safe enough space to actually talk about that,
The other person's not coming in.
I'm not available for them.
And they're not coming in either. They feel that.
They feel it.
They're shut down also.
Because life is energy and they feel that energy 100% of the time, especially clients who have trauma, which by the way is all of us, right? We're very aware of, does this person feel safe right now? Can I really be authentic and open? And that doesn't get created by what I say or how I sit or how I stand. It's what's the energy you're feeling? What's the energy we're creating right here together, the three of us?
Yeah.
Clients feel it, but only 100% of the time.
Yeah. True. It's good stuff.
Great stuff. I'm actually going to read this. I do audiobooks too, but I might actually take the time and read that, parts of it.
I have an audiobook.
I'm going to listen to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
Do
you.
you read?
Yeah.
Are you the narrator?
I am.
Good.
Okay.
I'm pausing because I had someone do a review that said, I highly recommend you read this book, but the narration was horrible. I'm like, oh, thank you.
God.
I was better on my third one. I will tell you, I did learn how to narrate by the third book a little better, but it's there. Yes.
Yeah, good.
I've listened to some audiobooks and I'm just like, whew, got to put this at like 1.5.
Right. You might do that with mine.
I listen to all books at 1.25.
Yeah.
That's
good.
That's where I'm at.
I might be at 1.5. You'll see.
We'll see. Your voice sounds good over these microphones, so
Yeah.
and you can sing. So
Yeah. Pink Floyd.
Vera, he does this every time.
I got him. That's my number one.
What's funny?
Yeah.
I know it is funny. Because
Am I the first?
Yeah,
you're the
you're
first
first
one
to
to
respond
actually
back.
respond back and sing the song.
I have history with that
Yeah,
album. So
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, we've had we try to get people to sing all the time because these are the mics, not the actual mics, but the same kind of mic that Michael Jackson sang Thriller
Yeah.
on.
Oh wow.
Really? I can't get there.
Yeah.
Can't
Let's
get
stick with Vera.
Let's stick with Vera.
And so we try to get people to sing. Sometimes I just like I'll have a guest sitting there and I'll go like, so I was told that you can sing, and sometimes you get the reaction like, what? Who told you that?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
and when they start reacting like that, I'm like, oh, they can sing,
Yeah.
and they just are shy to sing.
Yeah.
We got a girl to sing the other day. We haven't released her podcast. Probably coming out this week. I was just totally joking around. I had no idea that
She had a big smile on her face, grin. She was kind of nervous and shy.
And she did it though.
Yeah. Yeah, she was breathing in.
You never know.
Yeah.
You never know.
But you're the friend. And he always goes, every time I say this to a guest, he's like, Vera.
Yeah, I try to.
What has become of you?
Yeah.
Yeah, great song.
Yeah.
I don't know the
Great
song at
song.
all. I don't think I've ever heard it. You guys keep singing it.
Throw me a line if I reach it in time. You know I might be sinking.
Is it?
That's
You-
more.
Nope.
Nope.
Lost me on that
Yeah,
one.
sorry.
But that's okay.
more
It's
Prince
okay.
Floyd. Yeah, yeah.
He wanted you to keep going.
I
with
want to
it.
go. Finally. Yeah, good times. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're this was fun.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really
Fun.
enjoyed.
Feel very
this.
honored.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was.
appreciate it.
It was a very intelligent conversation. Very insightful. I am 100% on board with everything you say.
Thank you.
You know, I believe that we do need to continue to do more and grow as an industry.
Yeah.
As human beings, too, I kind of got.
Oh
you
yeah,
know?
human beings for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, like us.
Yeah, me and you.
Yeah, me and you.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Well,
wanted to know what they said about the MAGA hats, though. We were in.
Oh, but I never. The point to the exercise is they were never going to process
Oh,
it,
they
so
were
I don't
never
know.
gonna- you have
But
no
I
idea.
do know that when you see that series of slideshows, there's going to be some kind of experience.
I mean, I feel something if I would have watched based on the slides that you
Yeah.
saw. The one that would have affected me the most was the old guy with the young girl,
Right.
because we see that all the time, and
Right.
it's so weird.
So then you have a judgment, right?
I do.
And judgments, let's normalize judgment, right? And judgment's not a bad thing. It's just what gets created when I have it in the therapeutic setting or when I'm facilitating a group. You know, everything from like, oh, she's so pleasant, I really like her. That's a judgment, right? And
Yeah.
it creates a different kind of relationship. And so in a really healthy environment, therapeutically speaking, you know, I've worked in programs where, you know, we do clinical supervision and it's like, it's safe here to say whatever you want, but it really isn't.
Until you say something.
Until you
that
say something.
that pisses people off in the room.
Right. And then I've worked in programs where it's completely safe and we can really get real.
Yeah.
Say, I'm noticing with this one client that I'm irritated.
Yeah.
Right. And if we're not having that degree of authenticity, then we're missing an opportunity to really connect, because it's the irritation isn't the client, it's me. Right. And if someone can gently say, what do you think the irritation is about? Then we can start to be in that process.
As a practitioner, it's hard to say that to yourself.
Right.
You know what it's difficult to come to that conclusion saying, I can't get along with this client or patient or whatever.
Right. Because
It does happen occasionally.
Yeah.
it more often it happens with coworkers though.
Oh yeah.
The clinician, the clients are easy.
Yeah.
It's the coworkers that cause it. I mean, I worked with someone. I'm like, you are literally my mother,
Oh,
and I am.
God.
Every single thing is getting pushed.
Oh, shit.
But the difference was I had at least done enough work to say it's not her.
Yeah.
It's
not her.
really these
It's
things
me.
that are getting
Yeah.
touched, right? And so it was an opportunity.
An opportunity for growth. I liked what you touched on. I want to kind of just recap on a couple of things, because I think there was one thing that you said that was really important to me is about the burnout, and that thinking that the going somewhere else is going to make it better.
Yeah,
Because that does happen a lot in this industry,
absolutely.
and it's really sad.
Well, I mean, it is what it is, right? It's what happens when, you know, people switch relationships, people switch cities. You know, it's the human tendency until we pause and say, oh, maybe it's something about me. Not that there's something wrong, but like, what is wanting to be addressed here so that I don't have to like change the channel again, right? Because if I just go to a new environment and think it's going to be different, we know that's not really true.
No.
I'm taking me with me.
Yeah, it's the same analogy of an addict going to changing there and doing a geographical.
Right.
And I did geographicals in
Me too.
in my addiction.
Yeah.
And what was amazing is every time I did a geographical, I found myself there.
Yeah.
I was right there.
Yeah.
There we were.
Yeah.
Getting worse.
Ruining somebody else's life.
Yeah.
My newest phrase, and I don't know where this came from, but it's from projection to connection, right? And so, even if I'm switching jobs, if I'm not aware that I'm the one doing it, then I'm still going to project. I'm still going to say, oh, it's them. It's that boss. It's that. And, I'm not saying that, sometimes we need to leave a work environment. That's true.
There are horrible bosses.
There, sure, exactly. But if there's a pattern,
Yeah.
which, I find myself in these same situations over and over and over again, then it's an opportunity for me to look at what needs to change within me.
Yeah. Yep.
Only had 3 jobs my entire life, so I'm a pretty good employee, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let's see,
2, actually.
my
2,
first job
3.
was at the Structure men's clothing store at Fashion Island Mall,
Oh, wow. What year was that?
1996
I worked at Fashion Island.
and 96.
No. 88.
Okay. 88. I was in eighth grade, going into 9th.
Yeah, I was not.
Yeah, you were already sober.
Yeah,
but
I was sober.
So was that one of your first sober jobs at the Fashion Island Mall? Because that was my first sober job. You were drinking before you
No, I was sober then.
got sober in 86?
86.
Oh, 86. Okay.
Yeah.
Then I became a fitness trainer, and I did that, and I worked at the Ritz-Carlton and 24-hour fitness and had my own business. Shortly after that, after having 3 years clean, I relapsed, crashed my car. I had a little baby girl who's now 22 years old.
Wow.
And I knew God left me here to help people that suffer with the same thing that I did.
Mm.
So I had a job in treatment. I worked in that place until we opened Hope by the Sea. So
Yeah.
that's all the
Wow.
jobs I've
4,
ever had.
3, 4 jobs, bro.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I've worked
Amazing.
did I say I've worked at Hope by the Sea? I have. I've worked here for 20 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
20
Beautiful.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I work for the Hopeaholics
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, it is.
It's fun.
It's a great
I
job.
really like doing this podcast, and
Love
we hadn't. He was on vacation, and then I was on
please, you were
vacation,
gone.
and
You started
in
it. He
Italy.
would have been gone if you would have been gone. I'm fucking here alone.
Aren't
In
you
this
going
room-
somewhere?
I'm leaving.
No.
Yeah.
We're
He's
not sure
not
now. We're not sure.
allowed to go.
We're not sure.
If it's like a weekend, sure, he can
Well, I
do
think
like
it's
a Friday, too.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Maybe.
Coming
Maybe
back.
I'll approve that.
Yeah.
We went a lot of days without podcasting.
Yeah.
We were doing, because we knew I was going on vacation, and then he had stuff, so we were doing like 3 a day,
Yeah.
Whoa.
sitting in here for like 6 hours.
Wow.
But I was still feeling going home, and
Fucking
I'm an
great.
introvert by nature, so typically out there in the real world, I refresh myself by being alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I wake up and I go out into normal society and I hand out my coins to everybody, and I have a bucket of coins when I leave the house, and I'm happy, and but this I feel I get mutual coins back and
Yeah.
forth
Absolutely.
on this podcast.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It's a mutually beneficial relationship that I have with the guests, and not so much with him.
No.
like annoys me.
I force myself in here daily.
Like I didn't even want to co-host. He was just like sitting in here.
I had nothing to do. I said, "Bro, please."
Now this is fun. I'm just observing the dynamic here. It's
Well, it was like
great
weird
fun.
because I had the mic was supposed to be this mic was supposed to be here.
I had them
that
shifted
mic,
over.
I left for
Yeah.
the day, and he drilled
had
2
them-
holes
yeah.
in, and I
Yeah.
was like, "What are you doing?"
My idea was 2 hosts on that side, and so we can intimidate the guest.
Yes.
I wanted just to intimidate, stare at him, but he said no. No.
It seems perfect the way it is.
Yeah. No. I feel pretty perfect.
It's
Yeah.
good. Whole imperfect.
I don't-
Whole and
I don't like
Yeah.
it,
He doesn't like it.
but it
I
is
try
what
not to
it-
talk very much.
It is what it is.
I try just to sit here.
It's
and
like I
listen.
ask him, I'll like have a brain fart, and I'm like, "What did I just say? What was I saying?"
And he
He'll
says,
just-
I
he'll-
don't know.
Yes, that's what he says most of the
Right.
time.
all the time. I
He's
don't.
like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what you were saying.
I don't know is a very powerful place to
Yeah,
be.
it is.
It's
It's
a really.
liberating too. I don't know.
It's not.
It is.
I don't
He
know.
says it just like that too.
Yeah.
It's very irritating.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Where are you going?
But
I
it-
don't- I don't know. Don't
But it
care.
is what it is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well, this has been so much fun.
Yeah, it's
You
a good
guys have
time
made
in
my
here.
day.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you.
Thanks
Yeah.
for coming. We really
Yeah,
appreciate
really
you coming
appreciate
in
it,
and your time
Yeah,
is valuable to
Absolutely.
us.
yeah, very.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll be promoting it and putting it out. And do you have Instagram?
Of course.
What is it?
YouTube?
TJ Woodward _
TJ Woodward _.
Yeah, it's a good place to start. Instagram.
is.
You can find everything there.
Yeah,
Yeah. Find out everything,
awesome.
all the dirt on you.
All the dirt.
All the dirt.
There's plenty.
Nice.
Another podcast.
We can do a personal life podcast later.
Yes.
Right?
Should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll follow you. Did you get that? I mean, I know we have it on TJ Woodward _.
Why'd you have to go underscore?
Someone had TJ Woodward, I guess.
Really?
Yeah.
It's
That's
really
odd.
strange that they would have. Oh, Bailey's here with her baby. I just saw her walk by. I was like, who is that person pushing a stroller with brown hair? This was a lot of fun, and it was very informative. Sometimes they're just fun. This I feel like I got a lot of
He's a
education.
smart guy.
Yeah, very
Very
intelligent
smart guy.
man.
Yeah. Intellect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Come a long way from believing I was stupid when I couldn't tie my shoes.
Well, I want
Right?
to tell you what you found when you were when you said that at 7 or 8 you were thinking more intellectually, so you turned into that. You know, like some people at age 7 and 8 can't intellectually understand what's going on with them,
yeah.
even going back.
Yeah, of course.
You have that ability.
Well,
Yeah.
You know,
not until I was 40, but
the smarter we are, the harder we are on ourselves. even
Yeah.
as
you know,
it's
my,
true.
my sister is an animal behavior specialist, and she said the hardest breeds to train are the intelligent ones.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm like, oh, that's what it is. I'm just super smart.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it,
Thank
brother.
you, guys.
One picture, real quick. We do a picture and then